Talia Ricci. Thanks for joining us. Police are searching for a suspect tonight after a homicide at Church and Shooter. It happened just before 10:30 this morning. Greg Ross has the latest.
According to police, emergency crews were called here this morning after a man had his throat slashed in broad daylight.
Upon arrival, they found a man they located him with injuries to his neck. He was transported to St. Michael's Hospital, but unfortunately succumbed to his injuries and was pronounced deceased.
It happened on Dalhousie Street, just south of Shooter. The victim has been identified as 50-year-old Jamie Richardson of no fixed address. According to police, he had just left this pharmacy and clinic when he was attacked.
He was approached by the suspect. There was some sort of interaction, and the suspect assaulted the victim and was last seen walking westbound on Shooter.
Police have released this image of the suspect, and they're asking for help identifying him. They say he's about 6 feet tall and appears to be in his 30s or 40s.
He was wearing a black t-shirt, black pants, a black toque with a white crest on the front, black Converse shoes, and he was carrying a beige jacket. He was also carrying a white reusable bag, a small white satchel, and he was dragging a dark piece of luggage.
Police say it doesn't appear that Richardson and the suspect knew each other, but they wouldn't go so far as to say that this was a random attack. This is the second homicide in this area in less than 3 weeks. In late April, a man plunged to his death from an 8th-floor balcony in this building located next to the pharmacy. Just a few days later, police charged a 29-year-old man with second-degree murder in that case. This man has lived in the building for 11 years.
You know, we're all nervous about it. We're all upset about it. You know, the last one happened in our building, this just outside our building. So we're all just wondering what's going to happen next.
There needs to be more of like a visible police presence in the neighborhood just to make sure residents feel more safe and that the city's doing stuff to protect their safety too.
Yeah.
Police say they don't believe the residents of this building are in any immediate danger. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Peel police have arrested a man in connection to a stabbing earlier this week. Police were called to a home in the area of Wolfdale Road and Forestwood Drive just before 1 a.m. on Friday. Police say 3 people were transported to hospital, with one suffering life-threatening injuries. In a statement, Peel police confirmed that all victims are expected to survive. A 43-year-old man is facing a number of charges, including 3 counts of attempted murder and aggravated assault. Back here in Toronto, it's been a turbulent week for Drake. A 3rd trespassing incident took place at his house this weekend. It happened around 3:30 Saturday afternoon. Officers responded to reports of a man who was trespassing and refusing to leave. In a statement, Toronto police say the same man was also at Drake's house on Thursday. Police escorted him off the property. He was given a ticket for trespassing. Today marks 1 year since a man named Nathan went missing from his home in Toronto. Nathan has Down syndrome, and it was believed he may have been trying to make his way to Waterloo region because he used to live there. Family and friends gathered yesterday to support each other and remember Nathan.
It was just about remembering and getting Nathan to realize that we're still thinking about him and we still want him home. His friends miss him. From Friendship Club, they all want him back. They even said last night, some of them said it's not the same.
At this point, there have been no tips about where he could be. Anyone with information is asked to contact police or Crime Stoppers. Since Israel launched its military campaign against Hamas, Canadians with relatives in Gaza have been trying to get them out. And now, some are turning to desperate measures. Rafi Buchanan has the story.
Before the war, Hazem Al-Masri was planning a holiday in Gaza this month to be reunited with his mom.
Yeah, so this is my mom.
Instead, she died far from her son.
I miss her a lot. I miss her love. I didn't see her for a long time.
She succumbed to her diabetes after her access to insulin was cut off.
People called me and they wanted to comfort me, and they said, well, your mom died. At least she wasn't died under the rubble.
This week, Israel started a military incursion after it told more than 1 million Palestinians who have been sheltered in Rafah and its surrounding area they need to leave. among them Hazem's brother Nael. We expect death at any moment, he told the CBC freelancer. You're sitting in a place that any moment you can die. They wanted to come here through special measures for Palestinian extended family of Canadians. But Israel and Egypt must approve names Ottawa submits to get to Cairo. They've accepted none, leaving some, like Hazem, no choice but to pay thousands of dollars to smuggle other relatives to Egypt. His uncle died in Cairo.
He had infection in his legs and it was too advanced to the point they decided to amputate his legs. And after the surgery, he did not make it.
Al-Masri's MP pressing Ottawa to use diplomatic channels to allow Palestinians out.
We have heard from Minister Miller and Minister Joly, have seen photos with their counterparts. So we know that those lines of communication are open.
Immigration Canada says it is advocating for approved Palestinians and discourages them from getting to Egypt through their own means. But it has approved travel to Canada for 179 people who have done just that. Rafi Bujikani on CBC News, Ottawa.
More U.S. criticism fell today on Israel's Gaza campaign. The Secretary of State warned Israel lacks a plan for an effective peace, risking Hamas re-emerging in power. Chris Brown reports.
The UN says nearly 300,000 people have now fled Rafah, but as Israeli tanks and troops push deeper into the city, the options of where to find safety are few. Zainab El Kahout said food and water for her children are scarce, and an old tent on a beach is now all the family has for shelter. I stayed in it for 5 months in Rafah with other displaced people, she said. I want to try to stitch it up, but I can't. But even as Israel expands attacks in Rafah, it's also returning to areas where it claimed to have already defeated Hamas forces. We've identified attempts by Hamas to restore its military capabilities in Jabalia, said Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari. Hamas isn't just reorganizing, it's also striking back. The city of Ashkelon faced multiple rocket attacks Sunday, injuring 3 people.
We need to see that too.
In TV interviews, the U.S. Secretary of State underscored Israel has failed to develop a credible plan for safeguarding civilians and for stabilizing Gaza.
If they leave and get out of Gaza, as we believe they need to do, then you're going to have a vacuum, and a vacuum that's likely to be filled by chaos, by anarchy, and ultimately by Hamas again.
With the increased Israeli strikes from the air and ground, casualties are spiking, topping over 35,000 dead, said authorities in the Hamas-run enclave. Here we received the bodies of an entire family, said a healthcare worker at the Kuwait-run specialized hospital. They arrived to us all ripped up. May God be our savior, she said. In Israel, the week ahead is likely to be emotional and fractious, with ceremonies of remembrance and muted celebrations for Israeli Independence Day. Some families of hostages plan to hold alternate ceremonies that don't involve what they call a shameful government that won't end the war and bring the hostages home. Chris Brown, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Sophia Kambalia joins us now with the first look at the forecast. And if you miss the auroras, you might actually have another chance to catch them.
Natalia, yes, if you've been seeing images like this and feel like you're missing out, lucky for you, the sun has been sending extra strong supercharged particles our way all day today. In fact, some of this geomagnetic storm has rivaled the top of the scale extreme G5 level that brought the incredible dazzling images that we saw on Friday. However, over the next few hours and into the pre-dawn time period, we rapidly decline in the density of this solar storm back up to a middle of the road G3 level. So get out after the show if you can and look skyward, especially if you get into some of the clearing skies into the west end of the GTA. However, there is a lot of cloud cover in place into the overnight period, so you might not get to see the auroras dancing in the skies above you, but you will see backlit clouds in whatever hue is behind. Now, what is really happening here? There are clusters of massive sunspots erupting kind of electrons our way. These supercharged electrons get pulled into Earth's atmosphere and react with gases like oxygen and nitrogen that give us these incredible colors. However, come Monday, we have lots of cloud cover and more in place, and a different display of sorts by Mother Nature into the afternoon and evening skies. In this warm sector along the cold front, we could have some slow-moving and even training thunderstorms that could bring heavy rainfall along that 401 corridor, anywhere from Sarnia to Toronto, along with rounds of showers on Tuesday. It's not out of the question that some of you will see about 50 millimeters of rainfall. We'll talk about that in the long range. We'll talk a little bit more about the auroras and how wildfire smoke from Western Canada is back in place, disrupting air quality for parts of northern and central Ontario. Talia, back to you.
Thanks, Sophia. To northeastern BC, where 2 out-of-control wildfires are burning near Fort Nelson. Officials fear strong winds could push the flames into the community. Yvette Brend has the latest.
Getting ready for our sort of last stand, if that's what it comes to.
Fort Nelson Mayor Rob Fraser is trying to get the last 100 or so people out of town, with fire coming from 3 directions and the wind picking up again. Buses were prepped at noon today to take the last people out of Fort Nelson, but some refused to go.
We're asking them to rethink that position because there will be nobody there to help them.
Fort Nelson's like a ghost town. It's almost like the day after you, and it's real weird. You know, you're the only one in that town.
Dwayne Lowe says he's among those staying to fight the fire.
I have no fear. We're going to save it. We are not afraid. We're gonna handle it, but it is high on the nerves.
A 4-hour drive south in smoke-choked Fort St. John, evacuees wait and hope.
It's sad because what do people do? Like, if you're not prepared for it, what do?
It's been stressful, been very anxious.
These Fort Nelson teens bought fishing rods to kill time and cast away fears.
And we have a bunch of people down there right now still fighting the fire. Like my dad, he's filling up all the planes and helicopters and stuff so they can keep going back in and out.
I don't know, it's worrying. Hopefully the town doesn't burn, you know. Hopefully it's still there. It's always be home, whatever. I never thought it'd be us, you know, until now.
In Fort Nelson, the mayor is not giving up yet.
You know, we're going to fight this right to the end. As long as the life of people and our firefighters is not being jeopardized, we're going to keep keeping on.
Yvette Brend, CBC News, Fort Nelson.
Meanwhile, a wildfire near Fort McMurray, Alberta, has tripled in size since yesterday. Residents are under evacuation alert, meaning they don't have to leave right now, but should be ready to head out under short notice. As the housing crisis continues, some people are turning to house sitting as a way to save money. But as Vanessa Ballantyne reports, it doesn't come without a cost.
Christina Stima has made couch surfing her full-time job. The freelance writer has been house or pet sitting in exchange for cheap accommodations. And while the concept isn't new, what makes her situation different is she's only using it in Toronto.
Because I can't afford to pay rent in Toronto because it's just so astronomically expensive, I do back-to-back house sits.
According to Rentals.ca's latest report, an average one-bedroom unit in Toronto is $2,459 a month. Toronto realtor Justin Bregman says while this method can help boost supply, it doesn't incentivize investors to build more.
But if we can create enough housing at a quicker pace and allow more affordable renting units for people, then I think that they would choose that avenue over this house sitting idea.
But Estima says she's just trying to find the best way to survive.
The problem isn't me who is using every tool in my toolbox in order to survive. The problem is the system.
Estima says she's been house sitting full-time in Toronto for the last year and a half, on top of the many years she did it while traveling in Europe. She's built a profile on platform Trusted House Sitters to help match her with people in need of a sitter. Angela Law, the platform's community manager, said while the site is mainly used by people who have a permanent place to live, they're also seeing more interest in what people like Estima are doing.
There is an accommodation and a rental crisis going on, not just in Toronto, not just across Canada, but everywhere.
Despite this, she says this isn't the solution to the housing crisis.
There are no guarantees that the SITs will come along. There are no guarantees that you will actually get them. And on top of that, it's more than accommodation. It's actually a responsibility with pets and homes.
Estima says while she's happy with what she does, sometimes she wishes things were different.
You know, sometimes you enter an apartment and you're like, I wish I had my own place that I could decorate. And I used to have that and now I don't anymore. And so sometimes I think of that, oh, how nice it must be. These people who live here are so lucky.
Estima says while it's stressful house sitting sometimes, it's the best way she can think of to live in Toronto and save money for the future. Vanessa Ballantyne, CBC News, Toronto.
Modern engineering is testing out a new strategy in the era of climate change. It's a system of harnessing and storing rainwater before it hits the ground. Philip de Montagny explains.
We have 2 drains.
This is a smart blue roof.
This is the one that we harvest.
Designed by the team of engineers at Enviro Stewards. The system is programmed to decide how much rainwater to funnel.
And then the water comes down through here.
Into this large storage tank. It's then filtered and treated using UV light. It now gets used for flushing toilets.
The filtered water goes in there.
And watering this plant wall set up inside their offices.
We've cut our water by 56% by reusing the rainwater. We've cut our air conditioning by 43% because the evaporating water keeps the roof cooler.
The heating bill is also cut in half, thanks to the insulation the blue roof provides. By diverting water away from overloaded municipal sewers, it also reduces flooding risks, one of the top business insurance claims in Canada.
And it's doubled in the last decade. And basically we're getting more intense storms more frequently.
So as we walk out here,
this conservation building just outside Toronto also has a blue roof. It can hold up to 40,000 liters of water and another 5,000 in the basement.
We would love to see blue roofs being built into building codes so that designers and engineers and city planners have these tools available to them.
For all the potential benefits, this urban planner warns of possible risks of storing large amounts of rainwater on a roof.
It has to be very well built, it has to be very well maintained, and it has to be inspected regularly.
Then there's the cost. While usually cheaper to build than a green roof, which helps insulate the building and soak up emissions, a blue roof still costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. To have them built more widely, getting that cost down is going to be crucial. Philippe de Montagny, CBC News, Mississauga.
Well, some bad news for the Raptors. Today, the team has lost its upcoming draft pick.
The 8th pick will be made by the San Antonio Spurs.
The Raptors could have kept the pick if it landed in the top 6 in the draft lottery. Instead, the Spurs will now take that pick, which was traded to them as part of the 2023 Jakob Poeltl trade. But there is something Raps fans can celebrate today.
For the win!
It's the 5th anniversary of that memorable moment, the shot. Kawhi Leonard's series-clinching shot in Game 7 against the Philadelphia 76ers. The Raptors will go on to ride that momentum all the way to the franchise's first ever NBA championship. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Thousands got up bright and early today to hit the pavement for the Sporting Life 10K run. It's considered one of Canada's fastest races, taking participants through a mainly downhill route along Yonge Street. The annual run is in support of Campfire Circle for children and families impacted by cancer or serious illness. It was just one of a couple of fundraisers happening today.
Mother's Day. It's Mother's Day Walk for Breast Cancer Canada. Very exciting day for us. This event has been going for 32 years, and we're so excited to have the sunshine today. We're so excited to celebrate with the mothers. What a great symbol for Mother's Day, a breast cancer walk for survivors.
As you heard there, a Mother's Day walkathon taking place in Mississauga today, honoring breast cancer patients and survivors. The 5-kilometer walk took place at Streetsville Memorial Park. All donations from the event will go towards breast cancer research. Sophia Kambali is back now with your long-range forecast. And Sophia, you were telling us earlier that we may still get the chance to catch some northern lights tonight.
Tell you, yes, another good chance of seeing the auroras overnight, especially if some of these clouds part. It's part of a cloud deck that's responsible for this next hot, humid, and muggy system that could even bring some storms for us Monday afternoon. But first, look at the temperature and the humidity, feeling closer to 30 in Windsor, like 28 in London. It's within this warm sector that we could get some storms bubbling up right up along this cold front, perfectly timed in the late afternoon hours for your evening commute anywhere from Sarnia to Toronto. Storms that could be slow moving and drop a ton of rainfall. And then the secondary round of this low pressure system will bring showers and rain to really everybody in parts of the south, even if you didn't see a storm on Monday. Not out of the question between these 2 days that some of you could see upwards of 50 millimeters of rainfall, giving what was a really wet April a run for its money. Let's talk about some of these severe storms that could be within this orange hatched area that could have the heavy rain and the strong wind gusts and could be training thunderstorms. What does this mean? It's when storms continue to reform along the same area or boundary, producing that heavy rainfall, pooling, ponding, and flooding, and are incredibly slow moving. We'll look out for that tomorrow. And then any of the areas that aren't seeing rain and storms that were within this ridge of high pressure will see disrupted air quality as smoke is also filtering in from the fires in parts of Western Canada. We dry out midweek and then we look ahead, Talia, to the long weekend. Temperatures, though, at this early stage look like they're going to be above seasonal, but it looks like we're going to be in a wet pattern. Series of low pressure systems will be above us. Have a backup plan, maybe have an umbrella at the ready, but it doesn't look like it's going to be a washout of a long weekend. Even some heat filtering in up to parts of the north, so not too shabby.
Thanks for that, Sophia. And that's our show for you tonight. Thanks so much for watching. You can stay caught up on news anytime on our website, cbcnews.ca. And we'll leave you tonight with a few more images of the Sporting Life 10K run. Good night.